Hi everyone, today is Wednesday, February 20th, 2019, and this is a summary of our organizational leadership class for those that could not make it. And I'll just give you a very quick overview. We talked about two main things today, and it was just a very nice discussion amongst those of us who were on the phone. We talked about hiring the right people and how to hire the right people. And we also talked a little bit about trust building. And I don't have a chart on hiring the right people, but I'll tell you just off the top of my head. So I don't have any visual on it, but what I will tell you is in hiring the right people, the general consensus was that you really have to have a lot of clear conversation about the values. And a lot of the ways to have that conversation is to talk very clearly and candidly about what's expected in the team. And then having other members of the team interview the person and having that message be consistent. So, for example, if we're all expected to, be proactive on turning things in, within 24 hours, and then I'm interviewing with the boss, but then I'm interviewing with someone on the team and they say the same thing. We turn things over in 24 hours. They hear that consistency. They really know what they're getting into. And then they either have this reaction where they are kind of more attracted and excited about that because that really seems to be feels like a fit to them, or they start feeling a little bit weird and uncomfortable and it doesn't feel like a fit. The other thing we talked about are gut checks and a couple of hiring mistakes when everything looked good on the surface, but there was just something kind of weird underneath, and how that little weirdness underneath, the red flag that really didn't feel like a red flag at a time, it felt like maybe an orange flag or a yellow flag, ended up becoming a horrible thing. And so if you really, I guess in hiring, pay attention to your gut and do extra checking if you don't feel 100% sure that someone's a good fit. And then someone who's in our group who wasn't on the call today and I were working on this a little bit, and we talked about hiring slow and firing fast, and, don't fall in love right away. And in her company, what she's implementing is everyone that comes on as a contractor for the first couple of months, so we can just see how it goes together. So that trial period, you shouldn't feel like you should have some mastery of being able to detect right away if someone's the right fit for your company, but really getting the right people on your team is huge because of how important that trust building is to getting results. And more studies have come out on that, and that's the second thing that we talked about. And that video, if any of you watched the video from last month, I talked a lot about this, and that's what I do have on the screen is that old presentation. That is the Patrick Lencioni 5 Dysfunctions of a Team model, where it talks about trust and how trust moves up to results. And this really shows how trust and results are tied. But a lot of companies give trust lip service without realizing it. It's unintentional, but they'll do something fun to try to get that trust building going on. But what they won't realize is that there's some blind spots. And one of the blind spots is that the leader is very impressive and intimidating, and they don't really understand how much they intimidate the other people in the room. Not because of anything about them that makes them not good or anything, but just because they have that power position in relationship to other people in the room. And if people don't feel safe around the leader, it may not have anything to do with who the leader is. It might just be the fact that they're so impressive that they're intimidating. Then you still may not have trust. And the worst thing about that is the leader won't see it because it's all about the leader, right? So everyone's intimidated around the leader, but the leader won't see that because from the leader's perspective, everyone is interacting well. So it's really hard for us to detect when other people are feeling intimidated around us. So we talked about how to work through some of that. And then the other thing we talked about is all the research around the importance of trust. My big contention is that trust will naturally erode because people tend to feel threatened when they have unmet needs, and people are going to have unmet needs. But the most important thing is educating people on it and helping them understand that when they have unmet needs and they're feeling threatened, instead of blaming the threat on the outside world, really understanding the role that their inner psychodynamic plays and the stories that they've made up in their heads play into that experience of being threatened. So when we feel threatened, we have an unmet need inside of us. We think that something outside of us is making that need go away, is threatening us. But in fact, that feeling of being threatened is something that we're making up in our head most of the time. So that is a little bit psychological, but it really helps when you can get a group of people that become very self-aware and are able to understand their own stress reactions when they become threatened and take ownership of them instead of reacting and blaming others, because everybody's reaction is ugly enough that it causes reactions from other people, and that is the actual thing that erodes the trust. So I did not go into all of this in our call today. We just talked about it generally, but what we really talked about is how important it is to understand that even though this stuff feels really nebulous, it's actually very real. And Google did a great thing by embarking on a study that was much more recent in 2012, because Google has so much credibility. And so people who maybe, they like the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, but they kind of see it as just one book or one series or one guru. And then there's other people who write about this stuff, but they're sort of on the periphery. When you have a big project that Google does where they put out the results, that tends to lend credibility to all of it and tie it all together. And so basically Google studied 180 teams, and they discovered the 5 factors that were the only ones that directly correlated to team performance. And the first one was psychological safety, which is trust. Team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. But there's these other factors too: dependability, structure and clarity, meaning and impact. And one of the things that we talked about on the call today was how number 2 and 3 here, the dependability and the structure and clarity, are also very important, because they put the structure around what is it that I'm going to do today, right? They're the task part of it. And so we talked about how great the book Traction is for providing number 2 and 3 of these 5 factors: the dependability, which is the accountability, and the structure and clarity, which are all the systems that get you to that. And so if the book Traction can get you items 2 and 3, and then the trust can get you, the trust building exercises and the constant awareness of that, and I would say, in my personal opinion, constantly and consciously growing and evolving individual team members as well as the team members as a group. So we're really working towards everyone's personal evolution, personal maturity, emotional intelligence, self-awareness. So doing all that kind of works the psychological safety along with the team building exercises. The meaning and the impact, that's more your mission and your purpose and your values. So that's where that comes from, just being very clear on your mission and your purpose and your values, and people either resonating with that or not. But if they resonate with your mission and your vision and they share your values, that sort of takes care of 4 and 5. The book Traction and all those systems takes care of 2 and 3, and the Patrick Lencioni work takes care of number 1, but not the light version of the Patrick Lencioni work. I think you need to do the deeper work. And so that's where we get into all this needs work that I talk about at Aspire. Getting your needs met, understanding the dynamics of a reaction. There's another book called The Anatomy of Peace that talks about how we turn other people into objects when we feel threatened by them. And that was a very interesting book. So anyway, these trigger logs that we talk about with you guys individually, that's part of the individual growth that ultimately, when you're a part of a team, turns you into an agent of trust building instead of trust erosion. So that is the overview of our call today. I think it was a really great conversation, and the video from last month will give you some good context for this. So this video, I think, is just sort of gives you an overview, and we may continue to talk a little bit about hiring the right people. But what I said to everyone on the phone is continue to think about your people issues, what people issues bring you pain, etc. All you have to do is send me an email or make a comment to me, and I will build the topic around your specific issue. So if you have an issue and you let me know about it, we will make sure that it gets discussed. All right, everyone. I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye.